La discussion en cours se questionne sur la complexité des réalités montréalaises et vous propose sa chronique anglophone. Aujourd'hui, Bettina Szabo réfléchit sur le consentement en répétition, consentement de public, consent in rehearsal and audience consent. Bettina?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to About Bodies. So as Ligia said, today I'm going to be talking about consent. And it can be consent on rehearsal, on stage, and also with the audience. Obviously, after Me Too, this season is open for the conversation. And as a woman, this subject really deeply interests me. And since Me Too, and even before, I have been participating in forums of discussion about consent, safe workspaces, psychological and sexual abuse. And I've learned a lot. I wanted to share with you some of the stuff that I learned. And lately I learned also that there's two very important terms that have helped me a lot to identify situations of danger that apparently there's not equivalent in French. So I'm going to talk about these two terms, and maybe I will put a little bit of French in this Anglophone emission just to make sure that everybody gets what we're talking about. So to start with, these are very big discussion topics, and I'm going to go as far as my time is allowing me. I wanted to share with you also some thoughts related to 3 articles I read lately. One of them is about consent, like a safe work environment. Another one is about the consent of the audience. And a third is about a situation of abuse that happened in rehearsals. So let's start with the terms. These come from sociological studies regarding sexual abuse, but I think it's important that we understand that all sexual abuse implies psychological abuse. And psychological abuse is unfortunately very present in the dance environment. So the first term is gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation that seeks to sow seeds of doubt in the targeted individual or members of a targeted group, making them question their own memory, perception, and sanity, using persistent denial, misdirection, contradiction, and lying, and it attempts to destabilize the victim and delegitimize their victim's beliefs. Donc, gaslighting, ça n'existe pas tel quel en français, mais c'est une manipulation psychologique qui cherche de déstabiliser la victime pour qu'il ne croie plus à son expérience. Et pour pouvoir le rendre vrai, en fait, les prédateurs utilisent la misdirection, la contradiction, les mensonges pour pouvoir déstabiliser les victimes ou les groupes, et donc décréditer leur expérience et la faire douter de leur propre intégrité. This phenomenon is very present in society, just in general, let's face it. And this is one of the major factors why victims don't speak up, because it helps destabilize them to a point that they feel isolated and ridiculous to speak up. It can be done by denying what happened, by belittling the emotions of the person or the gravity of the situation. So, for example, in a case of power abuse, and yes, I'm thinking about Dr. Hovden's situation, one of the arguments that was heard a lot in conversations around tables is that because 2 of the victims were over 18 years old, then it's not sexual abuse, or like they're grown-ups and they know what they're doing. Or even because the minor was 17 and not 15 and not 13 and very close for being over age, the situation was trying to be taken as lesser of what it was. But however, like the law is very clear, and when you're in a situation of power abuse, is like a consent gets voided. So it doesn't matter which age you have. If the relationship is not an even relationship and a person profits of this power, that's abuse. But that's gaslighting. That's how gaslighting works. Even though the reality is one, very clear, the arguments and things around are just destabilizing the victims. And obviously also like with what happened with the trial and seeing that 3 sentences turned magically into 1, it really disencourages any kind of victim to come front and talk about it. The second term I wanted to talk about is grooming. And c'est pas de la toiletterie, as it should be literally translated into French. Grooming, the root of this term comes from child grooming. It's very specifically mostly talking about pedophiles. Grooming is befriending and establishing an emotional connection with a person and sometimes their environment and family to lower the inhibition and facilitate a sexual abuse. Donc, grooming, c'est établir une relation de confiance avec la victime ou aussi son environnement pour aider à que cette victime nous fasse confiance et soit moins inhibée avec un objectif d'abuser cette personne. So, making a relation into dance, one of the situations that made me think about a clear case of grooming that is not necessarily child grooming will be what happened with the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, where a teacher was able to get naked pictures of students that were graduating, alleging that it was good for their portfolio and as dancers they were going to have to get naked. And so there you have a perfectly stated, abuse of power situation and grooming situation. The students trusted their teacher, and therefore the situation of abuse was very possible. So these two terms are very important, and for me, they really made me awake to possible vulnerability situations, not just for myself, but also for my peers, and I really wanted to share them. I'm not going to keep on going because it's going to be too short to talk about the articles, so I'm going to keep them for next time. But just bear in mind these terms, and I think that it's very important that we also, like the Francophone community, integrates them more. Unfortunately, lately I learned that there's actually not literal translation, and even in French we actually use grooming and gaslighting. Donc on va parler de grooming et gaslighting. So now you know what they mean, and I hope that they help open your eyes. Enjoy your afternoon.
Merci Bettina. On rappelle que chaque chronique que vous venez d'entendre est une réflexion, est un point de vue et qui peut être ouvert hors de cette émission de radio. On veut offrir un espace de débuter une discussion et l'ouvrir à plus large et au milieu et à tout le monde qui se sent concerné ou qui veut reprendre cette place de parole